Thanks everyone for joining this webinar. So in this webinar, we are going to cover the topics about the top 5 automation use cases with UiPath, right? So these are the modules which are covered in the UiPath training, right? So we discuss the introduction to robotic process automation. Part of it you will see today as well. Then there is a hands-on after every module. We discuss overview of UiPath, what is UiPath tool, and then it's followed by a hands-on. Then we learned about process components and activities. Okay, we discuss application integration. There is feature in UiPath called as recording. There is feature in UiPath called as data scraping. So you learn how to do data scraping. We cover PDF automation, how we can manipulate the data, right? The course also covers programming, debugging, and logging. You learn about UiPath Orchestrator, right, and different other RPA tools. We learn how to implement RE framework in UiPath, and then you have to attempt your project. So this is how the course is organized. Now, in this webinar, we are going to discuss top examples or top use cases that you can implement using UiPath. Now, before we start or to work on those use cases, let us try to understand what is automation over here, right? So what is automation, right? So anything or any task that happens automatically, which does not require human intervention, right? We call that task as automation, right? So that is how we have been defining automation. Now, UiPath in particular is a unique kind of automation called as robotic process automation, right? As such, in the industry and in the market, different types of automations exist, but using UiPath, you can do robotic process automation, right? So what is robotic process automation? Robotic process automation is when you mimic the human actions, using these software robots, which you can create using tools such as UiPath, using tools such as Automation Anywhere, right? So when you create this kind of automation, then we call this kind of automation as robotic process automation, right? Why we called it as robotic process automation? Because these automation tools perform the automation like a robot, right? So they mimic human actions, right? Process is because we automate a business process. So let us say there are 15 steps within a business process. So we automate all those 15 steps within the business process, right? And automation, as you know, is automation when a task happens without a human intervention. Okay, so that is what we call as robotic process automation. Now, what is automation? So these are the tasks. For example, say manual task is say data entry. So we enter the data, right? We find data from multiple sources and we aggregate that data into an Excel file, right? So when we want to automate this task, what we can do is we can have a robot. So the robot will automatically source the data from multiple sources and it will aggregate the data into different Excel files. Now, what is UiPath? See, RPA or robotic process automation in itself is not a tool, right? RPA in itself is not a software. RPA or robotic process automation is a concept. All right. Now, what is UiPath? Now, this automation concept has been implemented by various companies, right, or various tool vendors. So one of the tool vendor is UiPath, right? UiPath is the top RPA tool provider, right? So UiPath is the top RPA tool, which is used by leading organizations. As I said, UiPath is a tool which helps us automate tasks by using various kind of activities. What are activities? Activities, you can understand activities as functions, right? Or basically actions or commands. Basically, you put different actions together or instructions together in a logical order to achieve the automation. Okay, so that is what you do using UiPath, right? So what are the common automation examples, right? So common automation examples could be, let us say, moving files from one folder to another. Examples could be, say, scraping data from a website. Automation example could be, say, sending emails automatically. Automation examples could be, say, Excel automation. right? Working with some Excel data and PDF automation, say reading data from a PDF file, splitting the PDF file, merging different PDF files, and so on, right? So that is what different or use cases you can do using UiPath. These are not the only use cases, but these are only a few of the use cases that you can perform using UiPath, right? So we can take a very simple example of moving files from one folder to other. So let us say over here, yeah, our task is that we have to move file from one folder to another, right? So task is to automate process moving files from one folder to other. Now, traditionally, right, many of you, if you are already from programming background, you would be like, so what is so big deal in it, right? We can easily copy file from one folder to other using many methods. Maybe you can write a batch script. Maybe you can write a PowerShell script. Maybe you can, write a program in any language, say in C, C++, Java, Python, right? Maybe you will say you can use a utility as well, right? So there are different ways in which you can perform these tasks. So what is so special about RPA, right? So special about RPA is that, if you use RPA, you will be easily able to create this automation without requiring programming knowledge, right? You can easily drag and drop the files, right? Or sorry, you can easily drag and drop the activities, pass the path. You can easily pass the path to the files, and then you can, copy the files from one folder to other. Got it? So over here, what are the steps that we have to do to automate the task of moving files from one folder to other, right? So assign the source directory to a variable. So we will get the path of the source file that we have to move from one folder to another. So the source file, count the number of files to be moved by using a counter variable. So we'll have to count the number of files. Then we need to find the destination path. And for each item in the source path, we will have to use that to move the files. So over here, let me show you an example. Okay, so this is how the UiPath tool looks like. So I'll go over here. See, this is how the UiPath Studio tool looks like. All right, so this is called as UiPath's backstage view. Right? So how do we create a process? So this is how we create a project. So in this project, we are going to create the automation. So this is how your UiPath project looks like. So now what you have to do is, so how do we copy files from one folder to other? So let us say this is a file, right? And I want to move this file from, say I create a folder, right? So I call it as a source folder, right? And I create this as destination folder, right? So assume that the file is over here in the source folder, right? And what I want to do is I want to copy this file or move this file from this folder to the destination folder, right? So what am I required to do? So I create a variable, say source file path, destination file path, right? Now, over here, you see the activities, right? So over here, see, if it were traditional programming, you would require to know the syntax, you would require to know the libraries, you'll need to get the tool, do a lot of other things. Over here, it is very simple, right? So simply what you have to do is you have to simply use the move file activity. Activity is nothing. You can understand it as a command, or you can understand it as action, or whatever it is, right? And what you want to do is you want to assign the, or basically move the file, right? So first I will do it in the hard coded way, right? So hard coded way is, right, I'll not use these variables, right? I'll simply write the path, right, to the files. Now, over here, what you see is a properties panel, right? For each activity, yeah, there is a properties panel where I can change the properties, right? So here what it says that this is the source path. So from here, where do I want to move my file to? I want to move my file from here to here, right? Where? In this destination, right? So over here, this is the destination, right? If the file already exists, right? If I think that there are chances the file may already exist, so I can choose to overwrite the file, And then if I run file, see, so what it will do is it will move the file from one location or one folder to another, right? So this is our destination folder, right? And you see we have the file over here, right? And in the source folder, the file has been removed because we used the move file activity. Now, this is the easiest way. Now, if I want to, make it much better, right? What I can do is I can assign the values to the variable, because see, the path to this file, right? So the requirement may be that you have to move the files from, there are many files in a folder, and you want to move those files, yeah, from one folder to another, right? Yeah, and the file path may change. So let us say in a folder there are 10 files, you want to move all those 10 files, right? So you can't really, write, over here, again and again, again and again. You cannot write, 10 move file actions or 10 move file activities. So what you do is you find a way to assign the values to the variable, and somehow you try to get the way to, get the path to the files dynamically. But right now we are doing only a very simple example. So source file path, right, and destination file path. And I will move the file again, right over here. From here, I will move the file again because I will run the demo again. Okay, so there should be a file. So source file and destination file, go over here and press the run file. And this way the file is again moved from one folder to other. Okay, my bad. I wrote the path wrong. Right. So this way, yeah, we have the files over here. Another very common example that you can automate using UiPath is, say, web automation. Okay. So in web automation, let us say our task is that we want to get the data, right? So let us say we want to get a list of different items on a particular website, and we want to store that data in a CSV file, right? So how we can do that? So let us see over here, say, for example, say we have this website, say IMDb top 250. So let us say my task is that I have to scrape this data, right? And I have to get all this data in a CSV file, right? So how can I do that in UiPath? So over here, if I go, right? So there is something called as, first of all, I will be required to open a browser. So I go over here, open browser, right? So open browser, which URL I want to open? I'll go over here, enter the URL, right? What is the type of browser I want to use? I want to use Chrome. Got it, right? Then what do I want to do? See, there is something called as a data scraping wizard. So this wizard allows me to scrape the data, right? So what I do is data scraping, right? Open your browser application document and navigate to where you want to extract the data from. So what I do, I click next, right? I go over here, I click next, I go over here, right? So this is how we get. So UiPath identifies the pattern. So what I did was I allowed UiPath to identify the pattern, right? So I first selected first movie, right? And then I selected the second movie to allow UiPath to identify a pattern, right? Let's say title, right? And I call it as I want to get the URL also. I get the URL, right? Now see over here, it shows me the preview of the data, right? I want to get all the records, right? But let us say we say that, okay, I want to get ratings as well. So if you want to get additional data, click extract correlated data. Click on this, right? And we say rating, right? Click next, right? And we see the preview of the data, right? Now what I have to do, since I have captured all the data that I wanted to extract, I click finish, right? And then over here, it says, is this data spanning across multiple pages? Yes, right? Because I want to get all the 250 record. So it says, press yes to indicate it. So yes, and click on this next, right? So what UiPath has done, UiPath has now captured that automation, right? And now it will, store that data in a data table variable, and we will write that data in a CSV file. Okay, so over here, how do I write data to a CSV file in UiPath? I go over here, say write CSV. Right over here, right from where? From this data table, right? Because the data that we scraped from the website, that data was assigned by UiPath to this variable, right? Now the data is in this where from here, I want to move the data over here. Where do I want to write it? I want to write it onto the desktop, say. Movies. Right? Desktop, save it. Right? So this is how we can make it work. Okay, now you'll see what will happen. Automatically, you'll see UiPath running and writing the data. Right, so it has extracted the data automatically. See, I was not doing anything, it was robot that was working, and after a while you'll see the robot writes the data to a CSV file. See, so the robot has completed its execution, and here we see the movies data. See, so we have been able to extract or scrape the data from the website within a matter of minutes, right? So this is another common use case that you would come across when you will be working with UiPath. Now, another common task that you may want to do is that you may want to send an email, right? So let's say this is my email address. I want to send an email, right, with an attachment, right? So let us say this file that I have just downloaded, I want to send this file to a particular email address. So how can I do so? So if I have to do so, I will go say how can I send emails? So over here, see, we have an activity called as send Outlook mail message, right? So you simply use this activity, right? Now for this activity to work, Outlook must be installed on your system. Like in my system, Outlook is already installed, right? So what I have to do is, to whom do I want to send an email? So let us say I want to send email to this EduTraining20 email address, right? So let us say I want to send email to this email address, right? So copy this, right? To whom do I want to send? To this, right? From which email account I want to send an email? I want to send email from this email address, right? So over here we say account, the account we say edutraining2020@gmail.com. What is the subject? Say $250, right? So this way you can write a body. There are advanced ways also, but for now I'm showing you a demo. Now if you want to attach the file, so say I want to attach this file, so I can copy this attachments path and I can pass it over here, right? I can pass a variable also, right? It's not that the file has to be hard coded, right? So I can pass the path like this also, and that's about it. Okay, and now if I run, you will see that an email will go. See, so now after a few seconds, you'll see it executed, and you will see that an email will arrive over here with the attachment. See, so we get an email. Got it, everyone? Yeah. So this is how we see this. Clear to everyone? Another very simple example is Excel automation. So what is this? right? So in this, see, the task is to fill Google form based on the data stored in a CSV file, right? So what we have to do is we have to, well, we'll not create a Google form. Yeah. So let us say create a CSV file and mention all the details, right? And now we have to use the data from an Excel file, right? And we have to fill in the data from that Excel file over here. Okay, so this is the task that we have to perform. Okay, so I have a better thing that is that, let us say this is an application, right? And in this application, I want to, book the expenses. Okay, say this is the record. So I have to have email address, employee number, yeah, cost center, right? And then I'll click create and I will select an employee, right? So I go over here in Excel, say expense report. Right, so here we have serial number, right? Say email, employee number, cost center, type, right? And let us say employee also. So let us say this is the task that we have to do, right? So let us say serial number 1, serial number 2, serial number 3, 4, 5. Yep. For the sake of demo, I will write my email address at all the places, right? Because there is no point in entering some random email addresses. So I'll write my own email address. So what we are trying to learn here is that if required, how we can read data from an Excel file dynamically and how we can run loops in UiPath. Cost center, let us say, we'll say it as a sales and marketing. Okay. Right. So sales and marketing. I'd say sales. Employee type, let us say all the employees are full-time employees. And all the employees are, let us say, right? So let us say this is what we want to. So this is our sample data. So what our robot will do, it will read the Excel file, type here, click over here, choose sales or marketing, whatever it is, choose FTE, choose this one, click create expense report, right? And then it will click OK, right? And then it will click OK, and then go to the next record, next record, next record. Okay, so how do we do automation? So we go over here. Expense booking. First of all, we have open application, right? So we go over here, right? So we do open application. So automatically now UiPath will open this application, right? Then what I have to do, right? I have to read an Excel file. So I do say read range. So how do I read data from an Excel file? Read range. Where is my Excel file located? Say it is located here. So I copy the Excel file's path. I pass the path. What is the sheet name? Sheet 1. Sheet name is sheet 1. Range, I will write blank means it has to read all the data. Since the data is in Excel is in row and columns in a table format, so I say data table. So DT underscore expense data. I read all the data of Excel file in this data table. Then what I have to do is I have to run a loop. Yeah, so I say for each. So for each row in the data table, what I have to do, I have to get the data. So current row represents, when the loop will run, current row will represent this individual row. What I need to extract? Email, employee number, cost center, and employee name. So what I'll do is I'll copy these column headers, right, and write them in the notepad, right? Because I will require this to tell UiPath from where it has to extract the data. Okay, so over here, what I have to do, I'll go over here, use multiple assign, right? So I need to get what? I need to get, say, employee email, right? Number, department, type, and employee name, right? Now, how do I get these values? See, current row, right? It contains the data for the entire row, and I tell the UiPath, right, that from the current row, get me only email, yeah, dot to string, because I want it to be converted to string. I'll copy that in the interest of time. Now in the second row, what do I want to extract? I want to extract employee number. Employee number. Over here, what do I want to do? I want to cost center. Then here, what do I want to do? So all these values will now be inserted here. Now what I have to do within the loop, what I have to do, I have to write the data. So I'll go over here and I will automate the task of doing data entry. So how can I do? So I go over here, type over here, say whatever, some random value I'll write for the time being. Over here again, some random value, right? Then I'll go over here, I'll perform click, and then I have to select. I'll go over here and say select any department, right? Doesn't matter whether it is marketing or not. So I'll select, right? Then over here, I'll say, yeah, check this FTE, right? And then I'll select the item, say Terry Adams, right? Then I'll say click on create expense report, right? And then I'll click again, click on OK, right? And then I'll go over here, click on OK again, right? So this is the task that I will do over and over again, right? So over here in RPA, what I have done, I have captured this task, right? So over here, what will happen is the UiPath will capture this task. Okay, so now over here, let us say expensive standalone, right? I've renamed it. Over here, what I will write, right? I'll zoom it a bit here, right? Instead of this, I write the variable. What is the variable? Employee email. Here, what I write, I remove the hard-coded value, employee number. Here, what do? I do simply a click, right? And over here, I want to select, right? So what do I pass over here? I have to pass the department, right? So I go over here and I pass the variable. See, right click, employee department, right? So this way I'm able to select the department, right? Over here, again, what I have to do, I have to select the employee name. Right? So it will select the employee name, right? And that's about it. Our robot will continuously run, right? And after it has done the task, I can, just as I've used this open application, yeah, we will use a close application. Right, so you go over here, close, enter. Right, and that's about it. We'll run it once and we'll see if there is any mistake or any problem. Right, we'll try to fix that. So let us run it, right? So we go over here, run file. So there is a compilation error. Well, it says that there is something we have created, right, which is conflicting with something which is already there within UiPath. So it is asking us to try to remove that. And what else is there for each row in a data table? All right, so okay, over here it has some problem. So what we'll do is, okay, so it works till this part, right? Okay, so now let us see what is the problem that it faces here. DD expense data. We run it again, we see what exactly is the challenge that it faces. Okay, it launches. We get the data over here, right? So far so good. Now our task is to, okay, I guess I know what is the issue. Expand all. Okay, seems like there is some problem over here that it is not able to use this. Okay, so what we'll do is it is able to read this, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to disable this, right? This code, and we'll run incrementally. Ideally, it was supposed to run at one go. Well, this is what something that has happened, which is kind of beyond our control. Actually, this is UiPath's community edition, so it gets updated automatically. So maybe some new update or release that UiPath has released has probably a bug in it. Yep. So let us see if this one will allow us to run. Yes, it does. So we'll see that it has started writing data in it. So later part seems to be having an error, but we have been able to demonstrate that we can read data from the Excel file, right? So this is how we can make it work. Okay, now let us see, then probably the issue is over here, right? So let us see what exactly is the problem that this one has, right? So it is clicking on sales. After it clicks sales, it needs to click over here. Okay, let it not click on sales. Let everything be sales in sales, just like that. Let it click FTE and all the other things as it is, right? And let it close the window. Let us see if it will still give us a validation error. Okay, it still gives. So I'm trying to find out which one is giving me an error. All right, but overall, we got to learn that how we can get the data from an Excel file, right? So how we can read data from an Excel file, right? And how we can make it work. Got it. So the problem is with that, it is not able to click on this FTE, right? So check activity, it is not able to work. Let's see. So check activity was the one that had a problem. Okay, so instead of check, we can use a click activity, right? So over here, we have to use click activity, right? Then we go over here and let's say I choose to click FTE. All right, so our thing works. Okay, so this is how we can make it work. So I'll enable all the other components, right? So what it does, it first types the email address, right? Then it types the email employee number, then it selects the FTE, then it selects the employee, right? So over here, I'm going to pass the employee name, right? So right click, variable, pass the employee name, right? So this is how we'll pass the employee name, right? And then we'll click on create expense report. And then we are going to enable it. So we click on expense report, then we click on that OK button, right? And then the follow button that we get that button as well. And that's how we make it work. And marketing department, let us see. So we'll try to select the department as well. So I'll perform a click over here. So I click, and then I will perform one more click. Right, and we'll run it in. Let us see that it runs this time. So that goes, it starts writing data, it selects the department, that was sales, it's Terry Adams, clicks OK, then it again writes the data, selects it, selects the marketing department, right, selects the different employee, and this is how we can make it work. So this is how we can read data from an Excel file and we can run our automation. So imagine this kind of work, right? So we let the robot run and we don't have to do this work on our own, right? So this is about the top use cases in UI. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Yeah, excuse me for this small issue that we had to face, a bit of problem with UiPath, that a particular activity was not working because of the latest version that UiPath has released. So we'll notify of that bug to UiPath, and probably UiPath will fix that bug in the upcoming release, right? Or else it will give the error message properly. All right. Thanks everyone in that case for joining this session. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.